This is a pretty interesting video. Recently, Dinesh D'Souza, a conservative columnist, was on the Laura Ingraham show, Ingraham Angle, and he was debating a Democratic strategist, Kelly Hyman, and the subject of this debate was a late-term abortion. As you know, the left is getting more and more radical every single day, so much that recently the majority of the Democratic Party is embracing late-term abortion. Now they are being honest on what they actually think about abortion. In the past, they would tell you that abortion is an ugly thing and that it should be as rare as possible. But now they are finally telling what they really think. They are embracing late-term abortion. So what that really means is basically termination of pregnancy that is performed during a later stage of pregnancy. So it is abortion that is performed in the latest months of woman's pregnancy. This whole thing started after Democratic Governor Ralph Northam faced backlash after he supported state measures that would loosen restrictions on late-term abortions. Let's watch the video.
The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother.
So this is it. Democratic governor would legalize aborting babies during childbirth. Let's be honest, this is murder. It is so obvious that this would be a murder of a baby. And it's also worth saying that Democratic delegate from Virginia, Kathy Tran, proposed a bill that would, by her own words, allow abortion when a woman is going into labor. And this is a murder. There's no doubt about that.
How late in the third trimester could a physician perform an abortion if he indicated it would impair the mental health of the woman?
Or physical health.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm talking about the mental health.
So, I mean, through the third trimester. The third trimester goes all the way up to 40 weeks.
Okay. But to the end of the third trimester.
Yep. I don't think we have a limit in the bill.
So, where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth, she has physical signs that she is about to give a birth. Would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion if she was so certified? She's dilating.
Mr. Chairman, that would be a decision that the doctor, the physician, and the woman would make.
I understand that. I'm asking
point.
if your bill allows that.
My bill would allow that, yes.
The left is basically now okay with murdering babies. Total insanity. And if that wasn't enough, recently an anti-infanticide bill was proposed in the Senate, and it didn't go through. But what was more interesting is that all the Democratic candidates for the 2020 elections voted against the bill. Absolutely crazy. The Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, which was first introduced in 2017 by Senator Ben Sasse, failed in the Senate. It was defeated with 53 votes in favor to 44 against. It needed 60 votes to pass. And only 3 Democrats in the Senate voted for it. It's pretty incredible that only 3 Democrats would vote for something that is so reasonable. This bill is stipulating that only doctors exercise the same degree of professional skill, care, and diligence to preserve the life and health of children who survive attempted abortions. So it's a pretty reasonable bill. Something that everybody should be on board with. Every reasonable person. But no, Democrats went so far to the left that they wouldn't even vote for this. It's now more than obvious that they became the party of socialism and late-term abortion. It's also important to say that Senator Sasse first introduced this bill in 2017. He re-upped this legislation in January of this year, shortly before New York passed a law that would allow for pregnancies to be terminated right up to the moment of birth. And it's also important to say how much did Democrats cheer after this law was passed in New York. It was actually really disturbing.
The anniversary of Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court decision that legalized abortion nationwide, state lawmakers in New York approved a law permitting abortion in the state for any reason until the 24th week of pregnancy and then up until birth to protect, quote, the life and health of the mother. Cuomo applauded the legislation and marked the occasion by lighting the spire of the One World Trade Center pink to celebrate.
And also one of the reasons why he re-upped this bill was because of previously mentioned Virginia delegate unveiling legislation for allowing abortions to be performed even when the mother is dilating. And what this bill by Senator Sasse was just ensuring was that children who actually survive the abortion are provided with necessary medical care. But even that is too much for new radical Democrats. Now let's take a look at this debate with Dinesh D'Souza and Kelly Hyman, a Democrat strategist. It's actually pretty interesting watching her trying to defend this radical position by the Democratic Party.
Now, Dinesh D'Souza, conservative author and filmmaker, and Kelly Hyman, a social justice attorney. Dinesh, let's start with you. There's something strange here going on with today's Democrats, because one of their radical members proposes something which most people think is absolutely insane, and yet then they all rush in to get behind it and to state it as their actual opinion. So what's going on here?
Well, this may seem like a radical turn in the Democratic Party, but it's actually anchored in the deep history of progressivism and the early 20th century Democrats. Of course, in the early 20th century, it wasn't abortion. But the two issues that progressives were very fascinated by, one was forced sterilization, and the other was forced euthanasia, basically killing. And Margaret Sanger, for example, was a champion of the sterilization side, forced sterilization. And she was an admirer of the Nazi sterilization program of 1933. Now, the Nazi euthanasia program of 1935 was also directly lifted from blueprints supplied by American progressives. So this is the actual deep, dark history of the Democratic Party. It's been kind of papered over by progressive historiography, but it's all coming back in a nightmarish fashion.
Well, again, we're looking at the results of this most recent poll. It's without a doubt been influenced by this infanticide debate, I think. And as a social justice attorney, how do you view this change, even among Democrats, on that issue of abortion?
Well, first off, Laura, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's great to be here. And I think we really need to focus on what the issue is. And we must look at it from the standpoint of unwanted pregnancies and how we prevent that, the best way to avoid that, and what we need to do to help people and advise them of the problems that they have. And so I think it's really important to think about education. And also,
I get that, Kelly, but keep us focused on, we want to keep focused very specifically on what we're talking about here. We're not talking about counseling people on birth control. We're talking about infants who are actually born. And the U.S. Congress can't get itself together to protect an infant that is born alive. Now, people think it's unfair because Mitch McConnell brought that to the floor. Well, it's a person, and the person is living. And now the Democrat Party has gotten so, they're just totally smothered by this abortion deal that they can't even see the lack of basic humanity in that moment. Now, how did we get there, and how do we get past this? Because this is, forget whether it's bad for the Democrats. I frankly don't care whether it's bad for the Democrats. These are people, including girls, little girls who have very few people to speak for them. That's my concern here. It's not for them. That's my concern here. It's not teen pregnancies are going down. This is a problem, and I can't imagine that you do. I just have a feeling you don't even buy this. Do you? You buy into this?
Well, I understand in regards to the legislation that was proposed that there are already books on the law that handle this situation. And my understanding is that there hasn't been a situation that occurred like this. And I go back to the point, I think it's really important.
Yeah, there have been situations like this where people have been born alive after botched abortions. And we're going to talk to Abby Johnson, who's a former Planned Parenthood clinic director, who's going to talk about that in just a moment. But again, we're talking about right now, we're not talking about first trimester abortions, whatever you think about that, even second trimester, which most people are against. We're talking about a child born alive. And I get why, Planned Parenthood wants to keep the money coming in. But Dinesh, this is not what it was supposed to be about. Hillary nodded her head during that debate when Donald Trump said, "You want to rip the baby up after the baby's viable." And she said no. She basically said, no. Well, yes, apparently.
Going back to the 1960s, I think it was the feminist Shulamit Firestone who said the fetus is an uninvited guest. I think this is the heart of the debate, because as long as the fetus is considered an extension of the woman's body, the argument is the woman should have every right to dispose of it as she sees fit. But the important thing is that even in Roe v. Wade and the early abortion decisions, the Supreme Court acknowledged that this issue of viability, the argument shifts the moment that the fetus can live outside the womb. womb. Of course, the fetus is still dependent on the mother, but a 2-year-old is also dependent on the mother. So viability was a critical reasoning pivot of the early abortion decisions, and it seems like that's gone out the window. And the basic idea now is that even if the fetus is viable outside the womb, if we feel like killing it, we should be able to do that.
Kelly, final words.
I think that we need to come with a resolution, and I think it's important. The way to think about it is when we think about a resolution is what's the way to deal with this, and the best way to deal with this is to deal with it about the unwanted pregnancies and how to resolve that and what we need to do to fix that.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but there are a lot of people who are desperate to adopt children. And I'm speaking as an adoptive mother. There are just so many people out there who would just love to take these babies and raise the children. And I understand a lot of people are, this is a tough issue for a lot of people, but just on the infanticide question, we have to be better than this. But I'm really glad both of you came on. Dinesh and Kelly, thanks so much.